Welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar. It's going to talk about the Northern Colorado housing market and water market. We were just chatting as the screen was playing about a lot of familiar names and faces on the webinar today. And although I can't see your faces, it's nice to know you're in the audience. For those of you who don't know about our group, Westwater Research is an economic consulting company that specializes in water markets and advises on water transactions throughout the Western US. And so we have 5 offices and we have active projects in just about every Western state. So today, like I said, we're talking about the residential real estate market and the water market in Northern Colorado, basically the Northern Front Range north of Denver. And this webinar is sort of second edition. So we all got together in January of 2021. I had to go back and look, but it was January 2021. We just went through 2020, which was what it was. And we were looking at trends and what was kind of hot in the real estate market and water market at that time. And we you know, that webinar idea was to bring together real estate professionals who might want to learn more about the water market and the water sector, and water professionals who might want to educate themselves and learn a little bit more about the real estate market, which I think is still a relevant and timely objective for this webinar. So we got some positive feedback on the last webinar, and we decided to get the band back together and kind of do it again, but look at what's happened sort of the last 12 to 18 months in the real estate and water markets. And I can't think of 2 better people to inform us on that and have a conversation about that than my co-presenters today, Kelly Moy and Wall Raven. So just a little outline of what we're going to do today. Kelly's going to provide a summary of the Northern Colorado real estate market, and then Wall Raven will talk about the water market, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So feel free to chat your questions to the chat box in Teams here. I won't get to those questions till the end of the webinar today, but feel free to post them anytime, and I'll try to get through as many as we can. So with that introduction, let me introduce Kelly. She's been a realtor in Boulder and Broomfield for about 30 years. She's currently with Compass Real Estate and serves as the media spokesperson for the Colorado Association of Realtors. She's in charge of gathering and disseminating statistics for every county in the state for realtors and the media. And you can often find her on TV helping to explain the real estate market to ensure accurate reporting on information and the status of the housing industry. So like I said, can't think of anyone better to give us a summary of what's happening in Northern Colorado in the housing market. So with that, Kelly, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. I had the opportunity to do this presentation last January, and I had to learn a little bit about how my expertise helps you and how your expertise helps me. And I really learned so much from this last year. So thank you so much for having me back again. I'm really excited about that. So my job today, as I understand it, is to help you understand the real estate market. And you know, there's been a lot about the real estate market on the news lately because we are not only experiencing a market that we've really never have, but we're also experiencing a shift at the same time. So we're going to try to deal with all of those issues all at one time. And I'm sure this is nothing new to people who are, regularly looking at the news and reading the paper, but we're going to delve into it really, specifically as it relates to water. And I hope it's helpful to you. So I will go ahead and share my screen, and let's just get this rolling. And any questions at the end, I'm very happy to address. Okay. All right, Greg, are we seeing the screen?
Yep, we're seeing it. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, sweet. Sorry, I was just waiting for your reply. Okay. So what you're looking at, we're just big picture, 30,000 foot overview right now of what's happening in the state. So these are the statistics for the statewide real estate report that just came out for the month of April. And the things that I want to point out to you are just some generalizations. Inventory is still really low, and I know that you hear about that all the time. And I know a lot of people kind of wonder why, like, why is there such low inventory? And the reason why is so many people are migrating here from Colorado, and they did during COVID because Colorado is a really cool place to live. And if they could work remotely, they would just want to come live in Colorado and work remotely instead of living in New York or Texas or Chicago. So the reason is migration. And then it's also really hard to find a replacement home. So when people aren't moving, there's nothing out there to buy. So even if you really could use an extra bedroom, chances are you're not going to run out and buy a house that has an extra bedroom because you can't find one. So we have a chicken and the egg problem right now, and that's the reason why we have such low inventory. So when you look over here at the new listings, that is a problem. You know, they're down every single month. The median sales price in the state of Colorado is up 18%. And if you look down at the bottom, we basically have about 1 month of inventory, and this is for the whole state. So if no one listed their house, for, you know, starting right now, we would literally run out of houses to sell in almost a month. So it's a shockingly low number, and it is prevalent around the state. But if we want to look primarily at this kind of northern Colorado area specifically, so dialing down to that, looking at Weld County, you're going to see a similar thing, only even worse when it comes to listings. Listings are down, and they are every single month. This is specifically for April, but we're seeing this month after month after month. Median sales price is up almost 18%, about the same as the statewide number. And once again, less than a month of inventory in Weld County. This is important because builders are building in Weld County, and they need to build faster. And that here's the reason why: because of these numbers, we are not building enough to meet the demand of the people who want to buy here. Going from Weld to Larimer is pretty interesting because Larimer has tightened up even further. So their new listings are down 16% in the last month. And keep in mind, April is historically the month where everyone lists their houses. So, you know, it's April and May when you just see the inventory really go crazy. We are not seeing it go crazy. We're seeing the opposite happen, which is very interesting. And that is what is pushing up prices. Larimer County prices went up 22%, which is unbelievable, truly unbelievable. And that's important to note. They also have not even a month of inventory in their supply. So it's even tighter in Larimer. And the reason why this matters is because builders are leaving Larimer County and going more towards Weld and a couple other counties that we'll talk about later, because of this tight market in Larimer and because it's becoming unaffordable. So taking a look at actual new construction. So that was all resale stuff, but resale and new construction work together. They, you know, they speak to each other. When resale isn't selling well, new construction will slow down because builders don't want to build stuff they can't sell. When resale's going crazy, builders build stuff because they know there's a demand for it. So the two definitely go together. If you look at this particular slide, this shows you the annual starts for new construction, and it shows you where those starts are. And you can see that this last year, this is for 2021, El Paso, which is Colorado Springs, basically, Douglas County, and Weld are the top 3 areas where we have the most annual starts for new construction. Again, here you'll see that a lot of builders have moved from Larimer County, which the numbers actually look kind of low for Larimer County, and they've moved to Weld County because of an affordability issue. It is harder to get water in northern Colorado than it is in Denver, and you know, fracking uses a lot of water, and so we are experiencing a water issue with northern Colorado. But at least you can see where the majority of the building is And as far as northern Colorado, it's in Weld County. So this is showing you where the housing starts for new construction have historically been. You will see over here on the left that the peak right here was in 2005. That was when we were building the most houses. You can see how low it went all the way down into the recession, 2008 and 9, 10, 11. And it's taken so long to come back to where we're trying to meet the demand and the need of the migration and the people who want to buy in Colorado. And you can see that here in the fourth quarter of 2021, we still have not reached the levels where we were in 2005. I think there's a couple reasons for this. I think builders are maybe even still a little bit nervous about building specs and houses that don't have buyers connected to them. I think that municipalities are limiting the permits that builders get so that we don't overbuild. So there's this sort of constant, what's the word I want to say, a carriage with horses running down the road, and the municipalities are kind of pulling the reins to make sure that we don't get back into a case of too much housing and not enough demand. But we're nowhere close to that right now. We haven't even come close to where we were in 2005, and we need to be there in order to deal with the demand and for all those people who want to buy. And you can see the counties where the peak is right now in terms of building new construction. So this is super interesting to me for a couple of reasons. And, there's this nice graph that kind of shows that we've 21% more annual starts for new construction. That's awesome. That means we're on the right track. We're finally putting inventory into the market, which is great. But the thing that I really wanted you guys to note was this part in the yellow, and that townhomes and duplexes are making up the majority of the new construction. 71% of the new construction are some kind of attached units. And that's important because they take less water than a single family home on a 12,000 square foot lot. And we are really seeing those big houses with the big lots not being produced like the way we are smaller homes with smaller lots and attached dwellings. So it's very interesting that the building has changed, and most of it is due to affordability, or I should say lack of affordability. It is cheaper to build those multifamily units than it is to build a single family home, and they sell better because buyers out there don't have enough money to buy a $800,000 single family home, but they can buy a 425 townhome. So builders are seeing that that's where the market is, and that's what they're building. Most new construction has typically been in Weld County, but people are worried about the capacity for Weld County to grow even farther, and whether they are going to add some more of these attached dwellings and patio homes in order to keep the affordability, at a reasonable rate. So this is just kind of an example of, these are some of the communities that are sort of they're master planned new construction communities. And I highlighted in yellow just a couple that I've sold houses in recently that I was surprised that they actually started adding attached dwellings and patio homes to their product, to their master plan community. And there are many more in this list that I'm sure all of you know that have also done the same. But it's interesting, Barefoot Lakes, Collier's Hill, and Huron Lakes, even looking at Huron Lakes, that is primarily a luxury golf course custom home community. And the last time I was up there showing houses there, I was surprised to see that they also had an entire new development wrapped around the front of it of attached dwellings, townhomes and condos, because that seems to be where the construction is headed. Again, affordability, cost of supplies, cost of labor, cost of water are all issues related to that. So it's interesting to see how many of these neighborhoods are adding that type of product to their list. So I don't know, taking a look at this one, the thing that pops out to me the most here is that if you look at Larimer County in 2020, so I don't know, whenever I watch these seminars and a graph comes up on my thing, it's always hard to kind of figure out what you're actually looking at. Let me see if I can make it easy for you. So in 2020, in Larimer County, most of the new construction was under $400,000. So that would be this gray line. And you can see that under 399, it was the majority of the new construction. Now headed into 2022, this was the end of 2021, the bright blue, you have really the majority of the new construction is under $600,000. That is a huge jump. We just went from 400 to 600 as a median price in new construction in 1 year's time. I think that speaks a lot to the affordability issue that we're having in Larimer County. And if you look over at Weld, not quite as extreme, but you'll see in 2020, most of the new construction was under 450. And in 2022, we are sticking at right around under 5. So their prices have gone up, but not quite as quickly. Thus the reason why Weld County looks really, really appealing to developers and builders, because they can actually build a product for a little bit less and hopefully sell it to people who can't afford this $600,000 price point that Larimer seems to have. So.
And Kelly, those prices are for new construction.
That's right. This is all new construction. All new construction. Yeah, and we can go back to the first couple of slides about Weld and Larimer if we want to see average prices for resale. So let me know at the end if we need to do that, and I'll point that out because they are different. Okay. So finally, this is basically where lots are headed. So vacant land. This is how this looks between Larimer and Weld County. And you can see historically, we're going back to 2014, looking at the supply of vacant lots and what has happened to them over time. In 2019, we had a bunch more in Larimer, but man, Weld County, people have been purchasing up vacant land quite a bit. Again, this is helping to show what builders are doing because this is where they're going. Both of them are way, way down in the fourth quarter of 2021. And in both cases, they're much lower than anyone would like to see. Right now, we have about a 12-month supply of lots, but it takes about 24 months to develop a lot. So when it takes 24 months to get it going and ready for construction, and you only have a 12-month supply, you have a real shortage. And when that happens, the price of the lots go up. And when the prices of the lots go up, then the price of everything else goes up because the builders have to charge more for everything that they're doing because they started with more at the beginning. So it's something that's interesting. We have not unlike the real estate market in the resale sector, we have an inventory problem in the lots as well. So I thought that this was interesting. This actually comes from Metro Study through the assessor's office, because this is an analysis of how big lots are and which ones are actually being developed right now. And I find it interesting how it's changed over time, because right now, 5,000 to 9,000 square foot lots, that's like the sweet spot. That's right here. That's in the orange. This is new construction, and they tend to be leaning towards this 7,000 to 9,000 square foot lot. And you can see the 5,000 is right there with it. Those are not big. I mean, they're little houses on kind of postage stamp lots. There's a yard, but it's not big. That is where they're leaning because that is keeping the property more affordable and that is helping them sell. So a builder out there is looking at a piece of ground and trying to decide how to divvy it up. And instead of giving people 10, 11, 12,000 square foot lots or more, they're making a much smaller, trying to build more product in a smaller space, which will take also less water and cost a lot less on the rest of the front. So the sweet spot here is 5 to 7, but also note that 17% of the lots are under 5,000 square feet. Now that's a pretty significant number of lots. That would officially be a patio home, a home really that doesn't have a yard, where the home itself is taking up the majority of the footprint, and you might have a little patio or a deck out back, but there is really not very much there to maintain. That is not only related to affordability, it's not only related to the ability to get land, but it's related to this baby boomer population that wants to downsize. And they're all coming from big houses with grass and yards that they have to mow, and they don't want to do that anymore. And there's a huge number of people. So the builders are looking at that and saying, wow, for less money, we can build a product that has more appeal to more people. So this under 5,000 square foot lot is becoming popular, and the 5,000 to 7,000 square foot lot is kind of the sweet spot for how big those pieces of ground are that people are building on. So kind of just to sum up a little bit, if I could, and I'm happy to take questions later, and we can always go back to any slide that you need. But the Front Range has seen so much growth during COVID that the prices of both resale homes and new construction is moving up faster than really we've ever experienced it. And it is it's a situation that's really actually pretty challenging. So for the last 2 years, our inventory for new homes and resale has been so low that the demand is just way outpacing the inventory. And we are literally seeing price increases of 22 to 25% in some areas, which has made our market unaffordable for a lot of people. Our wages here in Colorado are not increasing at that point. So, and I don't know if you've seen the news lately about rental prices, but rental prices are going up even faster. So we have a situation in Colorado where eventually people are not going to be able to afford to live here. And builders are really desperately trying to build a product that is affordable because they know they can capture all of those people who need something under $500,000, say. So it has been a real issue for us. COVID, instead of stopping the train just went barreling through our state because our quality of life is lovely, and a lot of people decided they wanted to be here, and that's great. But the migration really changed our market. And the counties that are seeing the most growth, again, we focused on northern Colorado, but don't forget El Paso is number 1. So El Paso County and Douglas County and Weld, that is where we're seeing the most growth and development and the most new construction. The interest rate changes in the last month or two have absolutely softened the market. Honestly, I think I could point to Easter weekend was the weekend that the market turned. You can see all the stats relate right to that Sunday, but the interest rates have absolutely affected this, so that will slow the demand. Some of those buyers that were in the market are no longer, because they were already pushing their purchase price and now they're priced out. So that has actually been a pretty interesting dynamic that I think we're going to see more of this year. It will slow the market down a little bit. It's going to add some inventory, it's going to lower demand, and eventually it will balance out the market, which is exactly what an interest rate hike is designed to do. But the question would be, if builders are going to continue to build at the pace that they are, even with the softening of the demand, because honestly, we need those units still. We're way, way underdeveloped at the moment. So if they can keep building, then we can finally maybe catch up. But it all depends on whether they feel confident enough to continue doing that, or if they're worried about a downturn. So that's going to be something that we will probably notice around the fall. It's just going to take a few more months to figure that out. So I think that's it as it comes to, you know, real estate, resale, and new in Northern Colorado. Happy to take questions after if you like.
Thanks, Kelly. That was awesome. So two things I took away from that, from sort of putting on my water hat, were huge amount of demand currently, the need to develop more homes to meet demand, and then the changing housing product. I mean, both those things have a water story, and I think to just jump into that side of things, I'm going to introduce Walraven. Walraven Kettlapper is the founder of Stillwater Resources, and he's also an outside advisor to West Water Research. He's been doing water right transactions around the West for over 40 years, including water dedication deals that he'll talk about today. So, Walraven, I'll pass it over to you.
Well, thank you. And I always enjoy Kelly's presentations, echoing what Brett said. You know, we kind of get in our silos here in the water business, and so it's kind of interesting to see how things go with what some of the things we're doing with water and how it relates to growth. And I really like her experience, her data, and the nuance that she brings to the analysis. So thank you very much. The trends that she describes have a real water component. The availability of water and the increasing cost provide a significant constraint on builders in building new homes in Colorado, and especially in northern Colorado. There are a wide variety of policies that have to do with water that we'll get into a little bit. And it's a big challenge to develop the water supplies necessary to assure that the new developments have a dependable water supply moving forward. So, say most of the people on this webinar probably live in a city or a subdivision that's was built by developers and builders. You probably have a municipal water supply that provides water to you, and you know, when you turn on the tap, water comes out, and that's pretty cool. But you know, a lot of stuff has to happen to make that go on. Most of us live, like I said, within a city or municipal water supply. You know, and that's the easiest way to move on. You just annex your land into a city. You go in and work within their policies and start your development. Alternatively, you know, you can start your own water district. That has been done in Colorado on a large scale with Highlands Ranch and Sterling Ranch. You know, D.R. Horton just bought a water company. Shea Homes has always been pretty savvy in the water business, but for the most part, you're going to be developing within an existing municipality. Sort of the mantra that we've had since I came out here in about 1979 is that growth pays its own way. And where it affects us in terms of water is that a developer or builder either has to bring water or bring money to the utility that's going to supply the water to them. Cities can collect tap fees to cover the infrastructure costs, and will either collect a water dedication, a water fee, a water resources fee, or actually ask you to dedicate the actual water rights so that you can serve a lot. So, and those policies are different in every community. In some cases, you get kind of a little sushi menu of different, you know, hey, if you bring me this particular ditch share, I'll give you so many acre feet. In other cases, It's more of a nuanced thing where there's a discussion about what exactly that water will yield. Historically, in northern Colorado, Colorado Big Thompson has been sort of the currency that's been used the most. So how do we get to how much water needs to be dedicated? And unfortunately, it's more of an art than a science. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And to kind of go off of what Kelly was saying, you start off with maybe a condo or a townhome, and that product, maybe you're only going to need about 0.18 acre feet. Now, an acre foot is an acre of land covered 1 foot in water, so about 425,000 gallons. So that multifamily user is going to use about 80,000 gallons or so a year. And that's almost all inside water use, because there's really no outside irrigation. Now, you might end up on a 5,000 square foot lot, as Kelly was saying, but now you've got some land to irrigate, and maybe that single family house isn't that much bigger than that townhome, but now you've doubled the water usage because you're irrigating that outside area. And then if you get a more, typical old style subdivision, you're now looking at 3/4 of an acre foot for that large lot. And so the real big variable in a lot of this water dedication stuff and trying to figure out what the demand is really based on outside irrigation. I'm involved in a small project in Firestone, and that project was zoned for a certain type of usage with really large lots, anywhere from 9,000 to 18,000 square feet. It's been platted, and the new plat has more houses, but they're all averaging around 5,000 square foot per lot. And the water usage for the subdivision went down about 20%. So the outside irrigation component makes a big difference. As a trend in Colorado, the historical water usage per capita has actually been going down. If you look in 1985, water usage was about 250 gallons per capita per day. And that's dropped about 100 gallons per capita per day over the last 20 or 30 years. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some is just economics. It used to be that there were communities that didn't have water meters. They do now. And so when you use water, you get charged for it. We've got water rate systems that encourage water saving. The more water you use, the more water costs per unit. So if you've got a gigantic yard and you're irrigating the heck out of it in the summertime, you get a giant water bill. But there's also been changes in technology with plumbing fixtures, sprinklers, and I think a general water awareness. I think a lot of the communities here in Colorado have done a really good job of encouraging and educating their public about water usage. We are in an arid state. We've got to, kind of keep track of our water usage. And then we also have had a few droughts. And so if you look at the water usage in 2000, we had a big drought in 2002. And a lot of communities went on watering restrictions. Watering restrictions generally drop water usage 20 to 35%. But then there's sort of a hangover from that you can see that after that drought, you've got new technology, new behavior, and that also results in continued lower water use per capita, going to time. So again, the trend is less water usage, but also water keeps getting more expensive. And then in terms of risk comfort, you can also look at some communities, have a lot of developed water, more than they need at the present time. Others have less of a surplus. And so, and some communities have virtually no surplus. And so there's a lot of variability between communities in terms of water supply. One of the things I really like working with Westwater about is they always have really great data. They've got a lot of really smart people that are good at putting together information, and so we were talking about how different the water dedication policies were between various municipalities, and I sort of kind of knew some of this stuff, but until they put this table together, I didn't realize how different it was. But they reviewed 25 different municipalities for what their water dedication was for a single family home on a 5,000 square foot lot. And as you can see, the results are all over the place. They're anywhere from 0.3 to 0.7 acre feet per house. Now, there's some reasons for that. You know, some legitimate, some possibly less so, but one is that every water system operates a little bit differently. So, a share of a specific ditch company going into municipality A, who has a lot of reservoir storage or a big groundwater storage project, they probably have a more robust system based on that right than somebody who doesn't have storage. So it might be that the second municipality has to collect a lot more water rights in order to get through a dry year, which is always when things are stressed. And so they may look at things a little bit differently. There's also risk associated with accepting water, especially if it hasn't been through water court already. So perhaps there's a little bit of a discount to cover that risk in case you get bad news out of water court. And then there's also sort of a scenario of the past. Perhaps water planning wasn't as good as it should have been in the past. Maybe there were insufficient water collected from other developers in the past. So there is a trend sometimes to try and collect a little extra water to make up for the past. So there's a variety of reasons why these are different. I wish they were all the same. It would make my job a lot easier. So what's the cost of water in a new home? And basically, it's sort of all over the place. But you talk about that $500,000 home. Probably 10% of that is water. It can change. Sometimes it's if you've got a more expensive house, it's about the same size. It's going to be a lower percentage. A smaller house. But with a smaller house with $50,000 for water, you may not even be able to build that house and sell it at a profit with that kind of a cost. So, but it's a significant number. And the currency historically in northern Colorado has been the Colorado Big Thompson project. And for those of you who aren't in the water business, Colorado Big Thompson is a big federal project that was started in the 1930s. You have Lake Granby, Grand Lake, Shadow Mountain on the western slope that deliver water to a tunnel that goes under Rocky Mountain National Park. Comes out on Lake Estes, goes to a variety of reservoirs and distributed all around northern Colorado. And so what's happened is a lot of these communities that were little towns that are now becoming big towns accepted CBT units to get a building permit. And as that occurred, things changed. So I love this graphic here because it shows sort of what's happened to housing prices based on the Case-Shiller index. And as you can see, prices for houses have gone up significantly. And Kelly was just talking about how much they've gone up just in the last year, which is also shown on this graph. But the price of CBT units has gone up twice as fast. So that component of water cost is going up and up every single day. So CBT, pretty expensive. So with that becoming more expensive, what's going on? Well, you can see back in 2013 to 2015, maybe 5,000 units per year were being traded for CBT, and it was either going to municipalities that were growing or going to developers who were giving them to municipalities for building permits. And despite the housing boom that Kelly described, starting 2019, 2020, the number of transactions in CBT has gone way down. And the reason for that is there just aren't a whole lot of units left to acquire. If you look at the pie chart at the bottom left, what started out as a project to help agriculture, basically to help farmers get an extra irrigation or two late in the season to finish their crops, has now become primarily a municipal water supply project. And so almost 70% of the CBT units out there are now owned by municipalities and water districts. And then we have the category of unlikely sellers. So we've got Excel and utilities that generate power, industrial users. They're not going to be selling their water. They need it. Or they're institutionally embedded into ditch companies where it's really hard to get out. So really only 10% of the water that the CBT units that were historically there are available to be bought, which whenever you have a scarcity of something, the price goes up, and that's what's happened here. And so now we see a pivot to other types of approaches, and they're detailed here. You see a lot of ditch company shares, and this is essentially a buy and dry strategy where you're acquiring water rights that were historically used to irrigate farmland, sometimes in the areas that are going to be developed and sometimes outside of those areas. Some regional projects like NISP, Windy Gap firming. Thornton acquired water in the water supply and storage system years ago and is working to get a pipeline built down to that area. So there's a lot of other projects going on out there, but there's also differences in policies. And again, my most recent experiences with the town of Firestone, and I think they provide a good example of what's going to be happening. Historically, they accepted CBT units. If you wanted a building permit, you handed them a CBT unit and you got your building permit. Well, what they found is that really wasn't working anymore. There wasn't enough water supply or supply of CBT units to serve that. So a few years ago, they embarked upon going on a different way by using native water in the area. They built a way to get water into a new water treatment plant that they've built that's just about to open. They bought reservoir storage, and they filed an augmentation plan in water court. Did a lot of stuff. It was very expensive. It took a lot of time, but now they're starting to pick up development. And the bottom line of that is those water supplies are going to be less expensive and more available than CBT. And I think that's the thing that builders and developers want. They want to supply water that they can count on, not only for its availability, but for its price. So as we look forward, just in summary, water supply is a major component of the cost of a new home. We've demonstrated that. And conversely, the lack of water supply and the increasing cost of water rights are a constraint on new housing developments. If water is too expensive or you can't find it, builders can't build. Water dedication policies around northern Colorado vary significantly. CBT units, which were the currency of water for development in northern Colorado, are expensive and very hard to find. And so there's a trend towards alternatives to CBT. With that, turn it back to Brent.
Thanks, Walter. And I think that's a great summary of the northern Colorado water market. Let me just make sure we're not getting feedback here.
You sound good.
Okay, good. Well, like I said to the audience and participants here, please fire your questions into the chat box. We had 2 questions, which I'll start with. Kelly answered them over the chat, but I'm gonna have us answer for the group here. So one question is, can you tell us how much of the housing cost increase is from materials, water and infrastructure costs, or just the market, meaning people have a higher willingness to pay? And I'll give a quick perspective just from talking to some home builders. Material costs were definitely a factor, I would say, over the last year in how many houses they're putting out for sale. There's one home builder I know who really restricts and consciously restricted the amount of homes they sell and build because of material costs. And they saw, neighboring home builders actually lose money and lose their shirt over the fact that the material costs went up higher than they had contracted the price of the home for. So there is a little bit of a worry in the home building community about material cost increases. I think that I would hope, and I think that's abating a little bit, and we're kind of a little bit on the other side of it. But the material costs are an important, and I would say a pretty significant factor in home price increase. But I also know that sort of just willingness to pay. So I'll let Kelly take it from there because she has her own view.
Yeah, on the material cost aspect of it, I just don't know the exact numbers, so it's hard to really say. But I can say one thing that I've noticed that builders are doing, which is totally new to me in my career, is that instead of, typically what they do is they have a lot for sale and buyers come in and they contract on the lot and then they build the house for them. But meanwhile, you've locked in the price for that lot and it takes 12 months to build the house. And when you're done at the end of 12 months, it's kind of nice because you locked in your price, but then the price went up 10% while you were just waiting and you already have instant equity. It was one of the benefits of new construction. One of the reasons why people like buying new construction was because, heck, while I wait here, I'm just going to make money, which it doesn't always happen, but it's happened lately. But so what builders are doing is because they know that their material costs are going up and up and up, and they're going to actually end up underwater on that house if they don't calculate the material costs correctly. So what they're doing is building a spec house without a buyer, no contract, not even allowing a contract on it. Like even if you want to buy it, you couldn't if you wanted to. Then they wait until about 2 months out before the house is done. Then they price it, then they sell it. So that way they are actually pricing it according to what it really costs them to build, plus their profit that they need to make. And they're not undercutting themselves. I've never seen a builder do that, and they're doing it all over town.
And then another question came in about build to rent markets. So home builders building homes with the intention of them being rental properties and not for sale. Have you seen much of that, Kelly?
What we're really talking about is apartments, because builders don't build like single family homes for rental purposes. Yes, if you look downtown Denver, there are cranes everywhere. That's what they're doing. They're building apartment complexes because what happened was we had a construction defect law in Colorado that was in place for a long time that made it very, very hard for a builder to build an apartment complex without getting sued later for some construction defect. And because the law was so stringent, most developers wouldn't build apartments. So we were way, way, way down on apartments that we actually needed. The construction defect law changed a couple of years ago, and now we're finally starting to see builders build apartments again because they're not so worried about the defect law and being sued over a small defect in one unit for the entire building. So now we're finally starting to see construction. We are still way low when it comes to the need for apartments, and especially affordable apartments. But yes, they're trying to catch up.
Have you seen any apartments, Kelly, in Larimer and Weld counties? Just curious.
Not many.
No.
Not many. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a big product and it's probably necessary truly, but I have not seen nearly as many. Broomfield has a ton. All of a sudden there's apartment buildings in Broomfield all over the place. Not seeing them in Boulder, Boulder's hard to build in anyway, but downtown Denver, Broomfield, but I'm not seeing very much in Northern Colorado when it comes to the rental units.
Yeah. I had a thought as Walraven was running through some of those dynamics and about CBT market transition to alternatives. And one alternative I thought of that's interesting to think about is sort of cooperation, in that there are other municipal kind of city areas, fast growing areas in the Western US where there's a regional water provider and it's really their job to manage supplies, and they're usually larger scale, and I think there's some intent to make it easier to solve the water problem. What we have on the Colorado Front Range, especially northern Colorado, is a smattering of individual municipal water providers. And there's probably 30 to 40 water providers on the Front Range, and they each have their own water system, their own policies, and so there is a little bit of a complexity in that. Depending on where you go to look at home building, you will face different policies, different water constraints, different costs. I was thinking as you were running through that, would there be benefits to seeing more cooperation between water providers where there is more of a, like you mentioned, Walraven, a unified policy on water dedications, or a unified policy on water supply development? And just wanted to see if you had any perspective on that, Walraven. I have some, but I'll wait till you say yours.
Well, I think there's always opportunities when you work together and you combine systems. If you look at what happened in the southeastern part of the metro area with the water providers down there, they've sort of worked together to work with the WISE project with Aurora and Denver. And I think the bottom line of sort of mixing themselves together is they have a better and a more dependable water supply. And so I'm sure that there are opportunities to do that. Sometimes there's competition between municipalities. There's other issues that stand in the way between working together on water. But yes, I think working together generally provides opportunities to add efficiency and dependability for sure. And in fact, if we look at what happened at the fires at Superior and Louisville, there were interconnects between those cities and with other cities that help provide supply of water. That's an example of how that works. But even on the water resources side, there's opportunities for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that slide about the transition from CBT to alternatives, because I do feel like from a water standpoint and for new home construction, that's kind of where we're at. Is it was relatively easy to solve the water problem 10, 15, 20 years ago, because it all revolved around finding some CBT contracts and dedicating them over, the CBT water supplies, and dedicating them over. And now my observation is that we're starting to see this divergence of what folks are doing to solve the water problem. And I just wonder if some of that divergence is going to lead to cooperation or not, or if they're going to be a continued, like, you go across the town boundary and it's a completely different water situation, which is historically what we've been seeing. So question for Walraven, besides storage capacity, what other factors affect municipal water dedication requirements and tap fees? You listed several of them, but do you want to run through some of those factors that influence dedication and tap fees?
Yeah, well, so tap fees are really there to look at infrastructure costs. So that would be more costs associated with water treatment plants, pumping stations, big pipelines, and that type of stuff. And then, on the water dedication side, that's the water rights itself. And so, yeah, I mean, just as we were just talking about the differences between these municipalities, they all have different systems that operate in different ways. And so water right in one system may mean something different there. So it's just every system is different. Every system is different. Maybe somebody has one supply that's used for outside irrigation and another one that's used for inside usage. So it's almost a case by case analysis. And I also wanted to comment on what you were just saying about the trend away from CBT. I think the other benefit that a lot of these cities that are looking at different water supplies for dedication, but it also provides some diversity in their portfolio. And just like you're supposed to have in your stock portfolio, your bond portfolio, a wide variety of investments, I think the same thing holds forth with water. And the CBT and Windy Gap, they've been great for this area, but they are under risk now because of long-term drought and climate change hitting the Colorado River basin. And so now there's a cloud of uncertainty around what the future of those water rights hold. And so I think it's a really good business decision by a lot of these municipalities to diversify their sources of supply to some of the things that we talked about today that are on this side of the mountain.
Yeah, something Kelly said about patio homes and sort of, we saw that lot size just kind of move left on her chart. One thing I'll just flag, I think, dedication policies have, in some sense, have responded to what we've seen in conservation efforts, lower water use. But I think it's good for the municipal sector to just keep after that. I mean, to keep every so often looking at what do homes use in our service area, especially these new construction homes, which are different housing products, because it is a challenge to bring water for home development. And if there is such a need for new home construction, as Kelly was saying, and water is a challenge for that home construction, there is a marginal benefit to right sizing the water dedication. It does affect whether a project can get done and the cost of those homes. And so as we see continued conservation efforts, we have billboards, we have people's culture changing, and we have housing products changing, lower lot sizes, less yards, more patios. I think it's always a good idea for the municipal sector to revisit those dedication policies, because the reality is it doesn't really matter what that estimated water use is likely to be for that home. It's what the policy says you have to dedicate. And if those two things are out of whack, I think we're sort of throwing some fuel on the problem a little bit. One last question, and then we'll probably wrap up. I guess this is a question for Warvin or me. Will NISP get done? My thought, that's a great question. My thought is it'll get done in some fashion, but it might look a little different than it was originally intended to look at. Now, what exactly it will look like, I don't have a crystal ball, but my thought is probably something will get done. But yeah, so it's probably an unhelpful answer to the person who asked it.
Yeah, I don't have any deep insights into that either. I agree with Brett that though there will be a project.
Yeah. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you to Kelly and Warvin for sharing their expertise on Northern Colorado water and housing, and hopefully the participants today in the webinar took something home that they didn't know before. And thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
Nice to talk to everybody. Thank you.
Take care.